towards making that happen. You've seen what the front office has done and what Zach has done in their time here, and I'm a small part of that, and I'm excited to be a part of that. And we have great people in the locker room that grind every day, that are excited to go and showcase their talents, and excited to do it in the city of Cincinnati. We have the best fans, and so this is where I want to be.
Sunday, you probably look at it as a finish line coming back from the injury. Do you look at it as a deadline to get a contract extension done?
Yeah, that's the last thing I'm thinking about. I'm worried about being the Browns right now.
Well, there you have it. Joe Burrow's not worried about a contract extension, and he's not worried about holding out to get paid. And he doesn't have to worry about it anymore, because if he did get paid right before Patrick Mahomes took the field, that was planned. You can't tell me otherwise. You cannot convince me in a second. You can give me all the facts, all the information that, yes, the team at the time just released the announcement, and Adam Schefter of ESPN and Ian Rappaport wanted to go ahead and go in a tug of war to be able to report who had it first, who was the one that was able to announce the deal. You can't tell me that that was not planned for it to be announced as Patrick Mahomes took the field at Arrowhead, self-proclaimed by Who Dey Nation Burrowhead. 800-224-2004. Burrow's now the highest paid player in the league after signing a 5-year extension worth $275 million, $219.1 million of which is guaranteed. Like, what are you doing with that extra 10 grand? Why not just round it up to the nearest 100,000? But I digress from that. He is now making the most money, an annual salary of $55 million per year. And you know what? He's earned it. Absolutely, he has earned it for a multitude of reasons. But let's start off with the first thing. He's changed the culture of what you have in Cincinnati. Go back and look at the history of the Bengals in the last 25 years. When they had Carson Palmer at quarterback. When Andy Dalton was slinging it like the Red Rifle he is. When you had players like Chad Ochocinco, TJ Houshmandzadeh, Vontaze Burfict. You can probably throw in another name like an AJ Green. What was the one thing you knew about the Bengals? Cheap. Cheap. They did not like giving out lucrative contracts. They did not like paying for players to stick around. They were very content with going back to the draft pool every single year and replacing talent as it walks away in free agency and signs deals to go to contenders. And they were okay with just being another run-of-the-mill team. But once you add in that special player, once you add in that guy that you know in an instant changes your identity, changes your culture, and more specifically, changes your goals for the long term and the short version, you go ahead and you start paying money. And you're watching it. You are. You've seen it for the last several years, how Cincinnati has made investments on the offensive line, some good, some bad, but they're swinging to protect Joe Burrow. They've made investments in the secondary, getting guys like Chidobe Awuzie. They've made investments at wide receiver, drafting a Jamar Chase in the first round when you knew that the offensive line was an abysmal turnstile that got Joe Burrow hurt and tore his ACL as a rookie. They're making moves to build around this organization that will turn them into a consistent contender, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL period. That's because Joe Burrow walked into that building and said, you know what? I know I can be the difference maker for your team. It's funny because there was a few years ago when Carson Palmer was doing hits in Radio Row. I remember this. I was listening to a show, and he said, if I was Joe Burrow, I would say I do not want to play for this organization. He would pull a John Elway if he was him. Because what you knew about the identity and the culture that was implemented by Mike Brown was that this team was never going to truly invest in him because they never invested in anybody. They didn't. They were okay with Andy Dalton being a run-of-the-mill average quarterback and just making it to the playoffs once every 2 or 3 years. They were okay with Marvin Lewis finding a way in a must-win situation, get to 10 victories, and then give him a brand new contract. They were okay with mediocrity and mundane play because of that was what they were. But it has changed. And what's also changed is the way that you view the NFL, especially in the AFC. I've talked about this before. The two most important areas of strength in today's game that you have to absolutely own, is trench play and quarterback play. You do not have the right quarterback in the league, you're not going far. But if you do not have quality offensive linemen blocking up front, your season's over. Like, I don't fault the Houston Texans for going and spending future draft capital to build around CJ Stroud, because this is not a move that they're doing in Houston to be able to better their chances of winning the division title. They're doing this to keep his confidence at an all-time high. Because if you falter and fall apart and your quarterback starts to regress and he starts to have a lot of yips when he's behind the line of scrimmage, you're done. So you need to have quality offensive line play. What has Cincinnati done? They've gone out and they added in Lyle Collins last offseason. This offseason, they went and they added in Orlando Brown Jr. They also added in guys like Alex Kappa and Ted Karras, and they've used second-round picks on guys like Jackson Cartman. Did it always pan out? No, but they've made the moves to guarantee that their offensive line would be better. And they also realized that in a rigorous AFC that features exceptional talent everywhere, from Trevor Lawrence to Justin Herbert to Lamar Jackson to Patrick Mahomes to Josh Allen. You don't have a quarterback that can go toe-to-toe on Sundays with these guys. You might as well just pack it in and call it a day. The best part is I actually believe that right now, the way that this roster and the organization has been making these moves, I trust them. Like, this is not a move to where it's like, oh, now we get Joe Burrow locked up, we're just going to go ahead and go back to our ways. I don't think that that's happening in the slightest. You're seeing them be able to spend money on the defense side of the football. Logan Wilson gets an extension. He's been an exceptional linebacker since joining the squad in 2020. You go ahead and you extend Trey Hendrickson to free up not only salary cap space, but realize that your pass rush is as important as your pass protection. You've watched them be able to draft exceptionally well when they know they're not going to have players who are going to be a part of the long-term future. Like, they went and they added in Dax Hill back in 2022. And the whole reason was they knew that this was the last year of the Jesse Bates era. They knew that Bates was going to command top-tier dollar on the open market, and they wanted to make sure that their roster wasn't going to miss a beat whenever he left the team. So I trust what they're doing right now in Cincinnati. And yes, there are going to be difficult conversations to be had. How can we afford to keep not just T. Higgins, but also Jamar Chase? Do we have to let one of these guys walk in free agency so we can afford the other one? How do we continue to build our roster with young, up-and-coming, emerging talent? That way we don't falter. But they do feel like an organization that has its ducks in order. They feel like a team that has transpired and turned the corner on making sure that moves will be made in the offseason to keep them in the contention status. And it all starts with culture. And culture begins with Joe Burrow making headlines down in the likes of the Baton Rouge, Louisianas, and then turning that into a Super Bowl-bound success year 2. They're doing things right. And they're doing right by Joe Burrow. And he absolutely deserves the entire contract, and he's the long-term future in Cincinnati.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.